Make sure that's still up and running. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the new media show. My name is Todd Cochran. I want to welcome you to the show today. Got a great lineup of content to discuss. And of course, I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Doing terrific, Todd. It's great to be back on the new media show. There's always stuff to talk about, and we've got our coffee, and we're ready to start talking.
Yeah, I opened up the refrigerator this morning after making myself a. This is just a reusable Star Cups cup for those of you watching, but
Yeah.
I was put the K-Pod in the Keurig machine and went in the refrigerator, and I'm like, there's no milk. I like a little milk with my coffee.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm the same way.
So I'm black this morning. So
ooh, you're going to be a little harsh today, huh?
It's all good. So anyway, good morning, everyone, or whenever you're listening to the show. I shouldn't say good morning, but welcome to the show. I guess, of course, I have it because it's still dark here. But next week, it'll be daylight because the clocks roll back. I don't. So I get an extra hour's sleep starting next week.
Ooh.
Yeah, fantastic.
Exciting.
So, Rob, I thought I would kick things off here with, I don't know if we talked about it on the last show, but we received our IAB Podcast Measurement Certification draft. Oh.
So what does that mean? What is a draft of your certification?
It's a 7-page, read through of everything that was basically done, step by step, making sure that you met all the points. You get a satisfactory or recommendations. And I think we only had 2 recommendations in our. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to get certified, but we got 2 recommendations, and it has to do around blacklist, IP blacklist. And they suggested that we add one more source because we had a couple of sources already for where we would get our blacklist from, known bad IPs, that kind of stuff. Mm. And they suggested one more. And then there was one other thing. But otherwise, I read through this thing, and I was like, man, I called Angelo. I said, this ain't covered a lot of ground. And he's kind of like, well, duh. Yeah, it has, because we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
But what we have learned is significant, and we'll have a blog post about one thing we've learned on redirect customers. And so, we've got enterprise, hosting, and then folks that use the redirect. And
so you're talking about what kind of, just on the redirect on the tracking side, right?
Right,
so
right.
Okay.
So the redirect certification is not going to come until, I think I talked about this in the last show, 30 to 60 days later. And there's a reason for that, is that we determined that, looking through literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shows, that once in a while there was an outlier. And the data turns out that issues were being caused by HTML5 preloading. So on a redirect, we don't always see a range request within that data. And to make a long story short, we have to do and have to put in place some auditing features. Basically, we're going to have to, for our redirect customers, they're going to come in at some point. They'll see a pop-up screen that says, if you want to be certified, if you want your data to be certified, you have to comply with A, B, and C, utilizing the redirect. And then we will actually do an automated audit on their website to look for preloading, HTML5 audio preloading. And it's a bigger issue than what we thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's not just a redirect issue. That's off of. I mean, that should impact everybody.
Everybody, right? Should impact everybody. But in the raw log files, we have we can see it real easy when that happens, and we can programmatically plan for it. But yeah, it's a big issue, and there's a lot of and sometimes, this is the crazy part, is we trace back through and it's from a third-party website that has syndicated the content. So the preloading causes a problem because within the IAB measurement spec, we are required to not count the first meg, I think. You have to make sure more than a meg of the file was delivered. So if someone is preloading, sometimes those can load 500K, a meg, 2 megs as part of the preload, and nothing's really even happened. So we have to make sure that, at least on the redirect side, that no one's doing any preloading. I guess I'll say it here. There's going to be some people in for a surprise.
Well, yeah, and then, so was there any special addressment of the issue of cover art being embedded in the MP3 files and getting downloaded first before the audio files
are downloaded?
Yeah,
code-wise, we've always looked at the...
Right.
Basically, we have to know what the size of the album art is.
Right.
And we have to be able to, we have to log that. So we know that if someone has, some folks have huge album art.
Right.
2-3 megs of album art. So, we had to look, on average, it's 500K. Just remember,
that's what it should be. Right?
Yeah.
That's what it should be. Right.
Just remember, folks, you don't need to put a 3,000 by 3,000 pixel photo in your MP3 ID3 art. You can put a 640 by 640 JPEG in there that's 40K.
Right.
Because what happens is the ID3 is at the front of the file. That data gets loaded first before the audio does. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but anyway, I think the IAB has our paperwork. So I guess we'll see. And I sent a message off to IAB. I said, okay, when are we gonna? What's the date? What are you? What are we marching to? But yeah, so it's. But this is going to cause and again, if you've been following the rules, and we've known preloading's been a problem for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a surprise. If you're not preloading, you're not going to have an impact. Most podcasters are going to say, what's preloading?
Todd, did they do any addressment of auto start? Was there anything around that? That was addressed?
That's basically just like preloading. Same deal.
Right.
Not allowed. Auto start is absolutely not allowed.
Yeah. Though there's a lot of folks doing it. I think it's becoming more and more popular these days, at least on the video side, to auto start.
Right. Well, you go to the Podcast Awards website. I have the YouTube video set to auto start.
Right. So it's becoming more and more common, and I don't necessarily have a problem with it as much as it's setting the user's expectation that that's what's going to happen somehow.
Yeah. It's not a good thing, to be honest with you. It's
yeah. I mean, you don't want to surprise people with audio blaring, because a lot of people are listening in the office or whatever, and it can blast on their speakers, and it wasn't expected. So for the first time, we're going to have to audit podcasters' websites. That's going to be part of this. I don't want to call it phase 2, but it's something we are going to have to look at. And yeah, Todd, I don't think we've talked about on the show here, and I've been thinking more about it over the last week or two, is the impact of certification on the industry.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be pretty profound here over the next year.
Well, I think that we're, I'll be honest with you, this was just the cost is not even the
biggest thing, right?
Biggest thing now. No, it was the time.
Well, yeah.
The time we put into this was incredible. And so I just don't, if you're small, and here's the challenge too, if you are a smaller podcasting company, you're new to the space, and you want to have stats and, the level to be able, it's not cheap. So in time and money. So yeah, of course, Libsyn, you guys, all the major players are going to be able to afford this, but what about all the companies that are not part of the IAB,
right,
and have no pathway, even if they wanted to certification, unless they pay the IAB membership and then pay the auditing fee? And then I think what will really happen is that there will be some, how should we say it? Well, it was an anal probe.
Oh, yeah.
You lay it all out.
Right. And I'm already starting to hear talk from the ad agencies that are actively buying in this medium, that their direction in the new year is to only work with platforms that are IAB V2 compliant or certified.
Well, that's
already happening. That's already happening.
So, let's just look at, we thought we knew everything about stats.
Right.
But we learned a couple of things. And matter of fact, we learned some stuff that the auditors say, do you want to publicly talk about this? We're like, no, we don't want to publicly talk about this because it's a competitive advantage.
Right.
And the other companies are going to have to figure some of these things we figured out on their own. Sorry. Yeah.
That's
the way it is.
That's the power of having a big data set, right? You can see things.
Well, not only that, but having, there is nothing more interesting than having someone say, why? To a line of code, or why did you do that? And I'm not saying anything was wrong, but the question being asked, explain yourself here.
Right. Well, Todd, so let's get really clear on this. The certification process doesn't cover everything, right? It only covers the things that have been identified in it. So if you have capabilities in your stats area that is in addition to that, or somehow complementary to that, that's not necessarily part of the IAB spec.
Right? But you have to explain yourself. But it has to be
compatible with it, or it needs to not disrupt that core spec.
That's correct.
But it's still going to be possible for platforms to differentiate themselves on statistics, right? But not necessarily at the core of certain core statistics.
The core statistics should be, they should be like really close. I don't know how you get. I don't care how you get from A to Z, but the end result, based upon the rules that we have to follow, should be very, very close. And
so is there?
Go ahead.
Is there any chance that numbers will remain slightly different between platforms because of little differences like this?
Oh, we did some A/B testing on, because we do a little bit. We had, how should I say it? We had a way we were doing some calculations. It was a little bit different than some, basically how exactly the spec called out. And we had to do A/B, and we had to show, why this method was superior or not, and we had to prove that. We had to prove. We had to prove, the burden of proof was on us, to prove that what we were doing was accurate and did not skew the numbers. So,
or was actually better than what the standard is, or better than what the IAB spec said?
No, you had
better,
like within 1% of what the spec calls out, 1-2%. If you're outside of there, then why? Why is it if you? And I'm just hypothetically saying you're outside that spec. They're going to say, well, how come?
Yeah. So if you say that you're outside of the spec, that would be some element of that filter that you guys are doing that would be more precise than what the standard is,
or just different, but comes up with the same number.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay, I get it. Yeah.
And like I said, we learned some things, and if Angela's listening to these cringing right now, but we learned some stuff. But I'm not going to go through that list. And the document that we got was, for us, got back as very transparent. It says here. This is what we found, and basically test objective. What we found, recommendation or satisfactory end result, and
right.
And we got to see the draft. Matter of fact, there was one thing in the draft that they recommended, said, "Oh, you've got the policy documents. You've got the wrong link. Here's the link from the website that's supposed to go there for the policy document." So it went from a recommendation to a satisfactory just because the auditors had the wrong link.
Right.
So you get to go through and review, and it didn't change. In some instances, we're like, well, that is what it is. And then you think, okay, what we really learned, Rob, is, all right, did we like all of our results, A, and B, if there was some stuff that came back that we can improve on next year when we go through this again. Yeah, I'm thinking, oh my God, in 11 months I'm going to be looking at this again.
So this has to be reviewed on an annual basis?
That's my understanding.
So you have to pay that fee every year?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
I think that's, it's either 1 or 2 years. MRC is yearly. So, and it makes sense that, maybe it won't be as deep a dive. Maybe they'll come back and say, what did you change?
Right.
And send me send me the code that you changed, that I would, it's in, yeah.
Yeah.
Someone is asking here, DMC implications? None. This has nothing to do with DMCA.
I just think, Todd, it's going to, as you think about this, as this rolls across the industry, right? And the ad agencies are saying, we're only going to buy on platforms that are certified. There's going to be changes that's going to cause in the industry. Right?
We'll see. I don't know. If they
some people aren't going to be able to do it, right?
It's a cost of doing business. If you're going to be in this space and you're going to be measuring shows, then
I agree with you.
Believe me, I didn't want to write the check.
No, that's right. But if you think about the big picture, right, of where this is all going, it's whether it's a year from now, year and a half from now, we will have all the big players on this standard, right? We'll all be able to take off the table this ongoing thread that's been biting us in the rear for how many years now?
Well, a long time.
The wild, wild west of podcast metrics, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully it takes that conversation off the table and we can start focusing on other topics, right? And this is where this association comes into play. This IAB thing is only for a specific purpose. It's only for advertising metric standards, right?
Yeah.
IAB is not going to get into, they could get into advertising standards, right?
They could.
So we could potentially head down the path with the IAB around trying to come up with advertising metrics, or not metrics, but formats and standards and stuff working with this organization, and maybe that may be a good way to go.
Yeah,
I don't know, but thinking about a new podcast association, think about these other challenges that the industry has going forward in standardizing things, because I think most people in the industry would like this to be a successful kind of monetization medium, right? That's able to grow and to be, what everybody wants it to be, $1 billion advertising industry. But it feels like these are kind of roadblocks to us getting there. It feels like we're on the track, right, Todd?
Yep.
To getting there. And I know that there's going to be pushback from the community on, what's the culture of podcasting? Is this just going to become another massive commercial medium, or is it going to maintain some of its history and culture around not being such a commercial medium? I don't know. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Todd?
Well, I think and maybe just wrap up the IAB thing, is that I'm being as transparent as I possibly can about the process we went through. And I'm doubtful anyone else will be this transparent. You might, but I don't think that all the other players that go through this, I would be shocked if they talk about the process and if they learned anything and if they had anything wrong and they had to fix it and, any of that stuff. We're not above. We're humans, and we thought we had a very, very good handle, but we learned a couple of things during this thing, and we're not too proud to admit it. I think that the question will be down the road as we go through this, what the impact is to other companies that have to make significant changes to their code base and their processing and cause, massive heartache in podcasters when all of a sudden their numbers drop.
Yeah, right.
Because that's typically the only way they go. They don't go up.
Right.
They go down because you have found something
that's not being tracked properly.
Right. So, we'd love, Ben, can you imagine that press release? We found something that we were doing wrong that is immediately your show's going to increase 25%. That's the dream press release, right? And then
right. I mean, we're already seeing some of this stuff happen. It's been going on over the last, 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
That company or shows that move from certain platforms over to other platforms are seeing huge drops in their numbers. I mean, I deal with it all the time.
Yeah.
It's just going to get worse.
And I think that Blueberry and PodTrack have the highest challenge, and anyone that does redirects has the highest burden.
Right.
And this is why we have to do these extra steps with the redirect stuff. Because it's not, you don't get exactly the same data as you do in the log file.
That's right. No, it's different.
So you guys don't have to deal with the redirect data. You just guys got to look at are you processing your CDN logs? And then are you accounting for these autos? Do you have a way to detect these auto starts or anyone that's running an HTML5 player with a link that's, preloading on another site someplace? Are you able to deal with that? I had to answer that on 2 levels. And believe me, on the redirect side, it's much harder based upon, now when it's, when you just get a range request for the full download, it's easy, but not all downloads are created equal as far as the content that comes through.
Right.
And I've already said more than I should.
Well, there's also the factor of dynamic ad insertion, where episodes vary in length based on that too. So these are factors that are coming in. I mean, we are doing some redirects with our Dynamo product. So it's, but that and the factor of dynamic ad insertion is going to have a factor in all this too.
Yeah.
How is that going to impact it? Programmatic ad buying. These are all inputs into this whole ecosystem. So we just need to be able to get a handle on how all this stuff works and to track it properly. And because there's fraud in this business. I mean, there's fraud in people buying downloads and people, all this stuff, and that needs to be discovered and filtered out and all that stuff.
The fraud at this point is many factors lower than it was many years ago.
Right.
Fraud was rampant in the early days. I mean, people I need a bigger audience, so set up a click farm or some script to drive download numbers. And we do test across the space, and we know whose systems are not handling that very well.
Right.
So let's be frank, but we will have to do auditing on our own content creators. We have to on their sites, and that's coming, folks. Just so you know. And if you don't know what HTML5 auto loading is, please read about. If you're using any, let me be very clear. If you're using a PowerPress based player, you're good. You're good. If you're using any third-party player whatsoever, please reach out to that third-party player and make sure that you are not preloading HTML5 audio. Because you won't be certified if we determine that you're preloading.
Right.
But yeah, it goes back to...
and it's going to slow down your website too.
Right.
So there's all sorts of...
It doesn't slow down the website. Well, yeah, it kind of depends on when in the page load where the audio...
Right.
Yeah, it could.
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this association. And I think, Rob, just from... I see a bunch of social Twitter tweets and, going, and I think we've got some people that are kind of tentatively raising their hands a little bit because they may have some time cycles to put into something. But I think your idea that we need to do a Kickstarter to start the funding process is a good one. How much do we need to raise?
I don't know yet. It's too early. We need to figure that out. So
I think we should go for a big number. Maybe we don't use Kickstarter. Maybe we use one of the platforms where you're guaranteed to get the cash no matter what you raise.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to raise a couple $100,000.
So Todd, one of the challenges here though is getting this started in a way that doesn't give the impression of exclusion.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that I've been getting a little nervous about over the last couple days. And I don't know that I have an easy answer for that because it has to start with a couple people, or it has to start somewhere. We can't start at 1,000 people.
No.
So we have to be practical about it. And then also we have to be transparent about it. So I think that's our challenge. Right?
I think the transparency, you hate to say it, but you get more than a handful of people that are putting together the initial documents.
Right.
It becomes a cluster. But those 5 or 6 people that are involved in the initial formation of those documents, number one, needs an outside independent, either counsel or firm that helps trade organizations get started, number one.
Right.
To give some stick and rudders, I like to say, and those of you who are in aviation know what that means a little bit, little right, left, up, down. So a little stick and rudder, and you're right, everything that is created as far as bylaws, a charter, I don't believe this works without being a nonprofit. And most trade organizations are not. I don't think the goal should be to make money per se, but it has, I think it has to be a company.
I mean, it can also be really, really difficult to get those 501c3s.
Oh, it's a pain.
Too.
It's pain.
Yeah.
Pain.
Yeah.
And as long as you're spending as much money as you're bringing in, the tax burden is, legitimately.
Right. And I'm sure you will be spending every dollar of it.
Because the lawyer fees alone, let's just be frank.
Yeah.
Lawyers are $500 an hour. You work in some of these specialty law firms. So this is why we got to raise a pile,
Right.
pile of cash.
And we're thinking about this and trying to come up with an approach that will be inclusive and bringing in kind of people that are in a position to be at the center of this whole space, that don't have a bias angle on this, and that's our challenge. Getting involved in this. I mean, Todd and I, you and I both know what happened to the ADM, and I'm determined not to let that happen again.
Well, the bigger challenge is people that show up with fucking agendas.
Well, that's going to happen. We just have to have processes that don't allow them to be successful. So,
you can have one person, completely disrupt any committee in one of these organizations. One person can cause so much trouble. It brings the committee to a gridlock.
Right. We've seen it before.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is, those of you that listen to this show, let me just be frank. This is not a small undertaking, and this is going to be, I cannot stress enough, massively time consuming.
Yeah.
So, when I say we need to raise a pile of cash, I'm thinking $250,000, $500,000. I mean, we need to raise some money.
Well, it depends on what the goals of the organization are, but I agree with you. It may be even more than that. If
I
we
agree.
Want to fulfill the goals of this organization.
But can this space raise $1 million?
I don't know yet.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Let's say that each of our prospective companies chips in $10,000. So that gets us to 250,000. But will podcasters throw in $100 a piece to help form something that they don't know if they're going to be represented?
Yeah, I mean, how does a podcaster know that joining this organization is going to be beneficial to them in any kind of significant way? And I realize that, given how many organizations I've been members of in the past, it's hard to get value out of an association for an individual, and it may just be that people join because they're trying to support the broader industry, but that's a lot to ask of people that don't have a lot of money. So it's going to have levels of participation that is compatible with people's ability, and that's going to be a challenge, but it's something that we're going to have to try.
But the ultimate value, if we are successful here, the ultimate value is we end up with now. Okay, so for example, let's look back at the IAB Podcast Measurement Guidelines document. 32 companies, I think, signed version 2.
Right.
Did we all get what we wanted? Nope.
No.
Nope, not by a long shot. But did we get to a point where we all could generally agree? Yep. And we put our names on it. Is there things that I wish was in the document now? Yep. Am I happy with the way it is right now? Yep, I am. So that's just one document. We're talking about charter documents for, I mean, there's just an unbelievable amount of work that has to happen. And you have to remember about commercial. You have to think about independence. You have to think about radio. How many subgroups are there? There's networks. There's ad groups. Are we going to invite ad agencies in?
Right.
We could get the ad agencies could be participating,
which would be terrific.
Right. But so,
will they is the big question. I guess it's the format. It's the format of it.
Right.
All right. Because if we can get input from them and participation from them, then we can really start coming up with some real solutions to some of the challenges in this medium. Right. We can get all parties involved, whether it be the technology platforms, the content creators, the producers, the publishers, now public radio, commercial radio. That's a big ask. That's like 4 or 5 years from now, if we're going to get that level of participation across the whole industry. And has anybody really been able to garner that kind of cross-industry support for any organization? I don't know. I mean, I want
to read a couple things in the chat. They're hammering me here in the chat room, and I can't go backwards in it. Basically, they're saying we need to do this first. Oh boy, you guys are putting so much stuff in it. You guys are just going to have to go to the Facebook chat. Those of you that are listening and look at the comments on this, because we get everybody excited.
Okay.
Essentially,
that's good. That's good.
Yeah, essentially what it is, we need. The word is we need this now, and it needs to be inclusive and So, someone saying, even if you have this, some corporate folks will go their own, and we've seen that with the. I know of one group that's definitely have gone their own. They don't have nothing to do with the podcast measurement guidelines. They've went their own way,
right?
But again, it's a collective. It's a collective job, but and be honest with you. I'm exhausted thinking about it already.
Well, Todd, fortunately, it's not going to be all on my shoulders. It's not going to be all on your shoulders.
No, but it's a weekly grind. It's a week, you're doing meetings every week, an hour every week or 2 hours, it's
right.
And it's hard work. Oh my God. You guys have no idea what we went through to get to the IAB version 2 guidelines. Even though number 1, you have no idea what we went through. There's a book just in that.
Yeah, that was like a 3 or 4 year process, too.
Yeah, and I can't talk about very much of it because I'll get kicked out, But it's a lot of work, challenges, a lot of heartwarming discussions.
Heartwarming. Boy, you're being gracious now. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
So.
Well. Yeah, I think here over the next couple of weeks, there's going to be more talk about this, and we're going to hopefully have a plan to be able to start this process and get as much feedback from people on what they would like to see and how it might work, and just be as transparent as possible, and just see where it takes us. Maybe I don't know, Todd. What do you think the odds of us being able to pull this off are?
No, I think we have to pull it off. I don't think we have any choice.
Okay. All right.
I just don't think there's any choice. I think we have to get there. Now, you and I are talking about this. We think it's cool. I can probably sway my board to become involved. You're going to have to sway Francesco and their team to be in your board to be involved.
They're already on board. So.
Okay, well, but we're going to have to see if we can get. And we don't want the 800-pound gorilla coming in and going, "Hey, I'm here. Now shut up and take your seats." We don't want that. So
yeah, I'm already hearing, Todd. There's groups of podcasters in other countries around the world that are already starting to voice their desire to have chapters of this.
Well, good.
So I'm already hearing that for Spain and Italy.
It should be global. It should be.
Well, yeah, and that's one thing we haven't talked about yet. But this would be a global organization. It would not be a U.S. only operation.
I think it's important that each country has its ability to
have its own
charter. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. But maybe the first go here is that hopefully globally everyone will jump on board. And it doesn't say that this has to be a United States centric evolution. If we can have people from other countries participate in the formation, that goes a long way in making it feel inclusive to everyone globally.
Right. I mean, because a lot of the things that we're going to do here, this is a global medium. This isn't a U.S. medium. This isn't a Canadian medium. This is a global medium. Now, granted, all those countries are very much part of the medium and an important component of this global medium. So we need to, you're right, Todd, we need to have people on the boards or participating in committees or whatever we're formatting here, and companies investing in the organization that are from around the world, whether it be Australia, Canada, the UK, whatever. Everybody's welcome. And that's the bigger agenda that I have with this too. I think that, James Cridlin, with what he's done with podnews.net, has really opened the door to global communication about this medium, which has been missing for most of its existence. So, and
be honest with you, Rob, I hate the word board.
I do too.
There needs to be a council, or board sounds authoritative, and
yeah, that's true.
So there needs to be let's call it a council.
Treat it more like a United Nations.
Oh,
right?
stop!
What you're saying?
Please stop. No. And I just opened myself up to that, didn't I?
Yeah. Well, it's all right.
We don't need a Secretary General of podcasting.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Dan, you want to be that Secretary General of podcasting? Or Jared?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my God! But yeah, we're going to need podcasters too. We're going to need the indie, the guy that's got 100 episodes, and the podcaster's been doing it for 5 years and he's not worried about making money. We need those folks too.
Right.
Because, this is, let's be honest, we know where I know where my bread's buttered. The indie podcasters, that's why we joined the IAB. Right.
I mean, because that is the vast majority of the content creators in this medium. And they're who built this medium. This was not built by big media. Though some would like to think it was, but it was not.
Now, I don't think that we're going to, I don't think we're going to have a committee member or a council member or whatever we're going to call these groups. We don't need someone walking the halls of Congress, and because I don't think we have legislative issues yet that we have to deal with, but maybe someday, because that's what trade organizations do. They go, steel organization. What do? They've got lobbyists. I'm not saying we need lobbyists, but at some point we may need people that are on the payroll that can go to industry events and speak on behalf of the
industry.
That's right.
Yeah.
And be our voice.
Yeah.
And that has to be someone that, again, has the ability to leave agendas at the door.
Right. It's got to be someone that's that isn't necessarily sitting at the podcaster end, but understands the podcaster end.
Right.
But doesn't sit at any one company that has a competitive interest in the market. Now, granted, that's kind of hard to find because there's always some competitive interest in the market. But it's something that we're gonna try and work through. I don't necessarily want to say who that could be quite yet because I don't think they've agreed 100% yet. So, but we'll throw that name out there. I think a lot of people will like who we're thinking at this point.
We've already said it on the show a couple times. So.
Yeah. So, but
they
haven't
confirmed. Then again,
they'll do it. All right.
This, I'm just fair warning. This is a big deal. This is a lot of work, and someone's going to have some CPU cycles on this.
Right.
And compensation.
Right. And what are the goals of the organization?
Right.
I think that's the other bigger question.
Yeah, you start with the objectives of the organization, and then you 4 or 5 objectives, and then you have key results below OKRs. Anyone ever heard about that? It's kind of a cool thing. I've been learning about OKRs, objectives and key results. So, you're
right.
And one objective is form the association, come with association bylaws. Right. And that until those key results are done, it can't drive other objectives. So, yeah. And best thing to do is steal other organizations' charters and modify it to your own. And luckily, those are on the internet.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, so that's going to be something that we're going to be working on.
Yeah,
trying to enable here and get started anyway. It's still a little unknown exactly how we're going to do it, but
do we want to open up and ask in the show here if you're interested in? Is this getting the cart before the horse here? Do we want to start building a list of folks that want to help? Is it too early for that?
It probably is a little bit, Todd. I think we need to have a better way of gathering that. Where we can keep it tracked appropriately and really get that data into a database or something. So I think that's probably a bigger agenda, but that doesn't stop people from giving us feedback on it, on what the priorities are. And I think that is the biggest thing is, what is the purpose of this thing? What are we trying to accomplish? What are the unfilled needs that the organization has, or the unfilled needs that the industry has, that having consensus and group feedback and collaboration can solve, right? Whether it be ratings charts for podcasts, whether it be ad formats for talent reads versus host reads, what's the durations. As we get into programmatic ad buying, these are going to be, those are significant trends in the industry right now, and that's going to be there's going to be a professionalizing effect that transfers to the industry as that develops. It's not perfect right now, and I think everybody would agree to that. And that's one of the reasons why we need to work on things like this. But anyway.
So, hey, OG.
Yes.
How you doing, OG?
Yes, dear.
Yeah, I got called old guard the other day. It was kind of.
Oh, it's been going on for a year now or so.
It was entertaining.
Yes. OG.
Yeah, it called me old guard. Someone called me old guard in one of the Facebook forums. I had
OP or OP too. I've heard that one too.
Oh, what's OP?
Old podcaster.
Old podcaster. I did a LOL, and I said I don't know if to take that as a compliment or as an insult, and it was basically talking about we're having this discussion about subscribe buttons, and and I just people think all they need is there's this new trend going around. You only need 2 subscribe buttons on your page. You only need Apple Podcast and Google Podcast. That's the only 2 you need. And I'm like, no.
Right. Not everybody's using those 2 platforms. You just look at the stats. They tell you that, right?
And and it's you can't convince someone that there is a historical. Of course, I'm one to say data because I've got the data and the historical data of people that actually have, this ability to say, oh, I can subscribe to the podcast via TuneIn. I love TuneIn, subscribe via TuneIn. And it's really, TuneIn is not really a traditional podcasting platform, but a lot of people consume podcasts on TuneIn or wherever.
Or Stitcher,
or
Overcast, or any of these platforms, right?
Yeah.
And they're all valid places to get shows.
So I just kind of I laughed, and this ongoing discussion. Daniel J. Lewis I think he's got a probably a blog post coming out soon. He's been learning some things about the Apple Podcast Directory and some other stuff that's been happening in the space. I won't give any of his glory up because he's been doing the grind. But it's just, I don't know how I got us off track here, but the ability to provide feedback in the space, it's, you're just the old guy, and there's new ways to do it. And I knew that, Rob, let's be honest, it's old dogs. You got to teach them new tricks, and we are the old dogs. So we have to make sure that we stay abreast of the stuff that's going on in the space, so that OG comment doesn't really turn into something that is negative.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of companies doing stuff, a lot of changes happening globally in this. It's hard for one person to keep up with it all.
Yeah, it is.
It's not getting easier.
And I get companies call me and I'm like, who? Who are you? And go over to their website and they got 30 shows. I'm like, wow, congratulations. It's just like, where did you come from? So I think that's the thing I'm surprised about most now is how many networks are out there.
Yeah. Well, and also how many new people in the medium aren't familiar with who we are either. So
nor do they care.
Well, that's true.
I had posted something on the Blueberry Facebook page, and it people already have to subscribe to that or like that page or whatever it is, follow or whatever you do in Facebag. And so I had posted some photos when I was in Columbus, and or the one of the team members did, and said Todd's been in the office and da-da-da. And someone said, in the comments, who's Todd and what does it matter? I'm like, okay, well, thanks for being a customer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway. So anything else new that you've been hearing about this week?
I'll be honest with you. It's been so busy. I just literally have been face planning every night. I mean, this year has just went like that. We're already in November, dude. It's like,
yeah. It's going to be CES here, not too much longer.
And I'm behind.
6 weeks.
I'm behind in getting ready for CES. The gal who's my rep at CEA, she emailed me, and I had already put my furniture and internet and chair order in, and I'm trying to get some upstairs space for platform space. And she goes, what is your schedule for doing short interviews on the roof? And I'm like, be honest with you, I don't have a schedule right now. I'll just take whatever's left, because I'm behind in planning. So we get a room, but it's gonna be on me before I know it. And I actually did update the broadcast application on TPN.TV so that we can start getting vendor. But I got to get mailings out, and because we mail all the vendors and remind them, hey, we're going to be there again, blah, blah, blah. And I got to get into the CES directory and start, we're going to do a little different this year. I'm going to be more active in just picking shows or picking companies that I want versus just making it a free-for-all, apply to be on the broadcast. And we're not going to do 10 hours a day. I've decided to do about 3 hours max, and that's it. And I'm going to, that means maybe like 12, 48 total vendors I'll talk to at CES. So I'm going to be real picky.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I may be going back to CES again this coming year. I don't know. It hasn't been formally decided, but I mean, years ago, I used to go every year. Mm-hmm. So I used to come down and see you all the time down there.
Yeah.
It's going back again.
We hang out at the Sands now. This is be a second year back in the Sands. We're there with all the startups. We're not going to the big booths. I didn't even get into LVCC last year. I spent my entire time at Sands. There's just so much exciting stuff there that it's good. But I've got a very, very busy January. I get back from CES and I literally do a turnaround and leave for the East Coast. So it's going to be ugly for me. I think you're going to be hosting some shows.
You're going to be busy on the road. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, we have, there's PodFest coming up in March here, and PodCon's coming up here. I don't know if you've got your booth nailed down.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and we've got ours figured out too, and it's amazing how early everybody's been working on Podcast Movement this year.
Oh yeah, sponsorships are already in for Podcast Movement.
Right, it's already in. The planning stuff is already happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And if those of you that don't know, November 30th is the deadline for speaking submissions at PodFest in Orlando. So you've got until the end of the month here to get that done. That's the date I heard. So, and then I got to come up with a new topic this year. I'm retiring the topic I've talked about for 2 years in a row. What should I talk about, Rob? What should be my topic du jour this year?
Audience and monetizations seem to be the two hot topics in the next year. At least
I've been talking about. I'm tired of talking about that.
I know. It's like you want to move on from that, huh?
I want to talk about something else. How about it, everyone? What should I talk about at PodFest? Maybe give Rob some ideas too. Or did you submit any sessions yet?
No, I haven't yet. I haven't submitted. I've only been working on the whole booth side of stuff and trying to get that all arranged first, and then we can start working on the content side.
Yeah, the monetization thing. It's just and there's so many people that are doing monetization now.
Right.
Maybe I don't need to be heard from on that. So I don't know. Maybe it's time to talk about. Maybe I should, because I went through this IAB thing. The team has. Maybe it's time to talk about that. Maybe that's the topic for the year.
The implications of certification.
Yeah. But the thing is, I got to be careful because I don't want to. You can't turn into a pitch.
Right.
You can't.
It shouldn't be, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're thinking about it more from an industry perspective,
right,
and your experience of what it caused you to reevaluate and look at that, maybe it's kind of like having an editor look at an article, right?
Yeah.
They're going to see things that you didn't see because you're close to it, right? And they maybe bring a different perspective on it. So Todd, I just saw this number pop up to me. I'm looking at an article on Digiday that had a relationship to Dan Granger, who's the CEO and founder of Oxford Road, who's a kind of like a big ad agency in the podcasting space. But this article says that podcast revenue is projected to be $659 million by 2020. What do you think about that? Do you think we're going to get there? Because I think we're at like 300 something now, 400 something, right?
If we get to 650, I can't see how we don't fill all the 90% remaining inventory. I don't see how we don't fill that all. But with this feeding frenzy,
I'm not sure there's enough content. I'm not sure there's enough content out there that's monetizable. Let me just do the math on what it would take to sell all of our inventory. So I'm just worried about these revenue projections. I've seen ones that are, have it as high as $1 billion or $1.5 billion or whatever. So there's these aspirational numbers that I keep hearing about, but nobody's ever talking about how we're going to get there, right? How much inventory has to be in place? How big do the audiences need to be?
Yeah.
What's the CPM models that have to be in place? And these are all issues that this industry association needs to tackle.
Rob, if I just a quick whip of the calculator. If I sold wait a minute, is that per month? Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 divided by 1,000 divided by times 20. Yeah, we can get there. We can get there. Absolutely. We can get there. Because I think about if I could sell all of my inventory every month.
Oh, you're never going to do that though, Todd. Are you?
If I could sell all of the inventory that we have that is in the platform that is not being, that's a significant number. It's a big number. It's actually kind of surprised me.
What the 650 number?
No, if I could sell all the inventory
okay.
Right, it would be big.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we can get there. And if you look at Rob's and look at you guys and look at Podbean and look at everyone that has all this, the key is the problem is though, it can't be sold. All of it can't be sold. All of it won't want to be sold. So if I just look at my base, if I look at the base number of shows that have asked, hey, we want advertising, that's 4,000 or 5,000 shows on our side that have said they raised their hand, but that runs shows that have everything from 100 listeners to, the stratosphere.
Right.
So
right.
I can't really, I'd love to give that. We've done that before, and give a very, very small podcast or just you just give them a flat base because you really can't convert it to a CPM. It's a lot of work, but you might get there between all of us. If people are serious about spending money in the space, sure.
Okay.
But it's going to be, you're going to be hearing a lot of inventory from, it's going to be a pretty diverse crowd of advertisers, or the audience or the listeners are going to get sick of it real quick.
Right. And what's the ad load that's necessary to get there too?
The ad load to get there has got to be 100%. You're running 80% of existing available podcast at 100%.
No, but what is that? Is that 4 spots per episode?
No, I'm just talking one.
Yeah. Okay, 1 spot per
one episode. Spot. Yeah.
And is it programmatic or is it host read?
I think it's hybrid.
Yeah, I mean it needs to be, right? I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet.
No,
right? As an industry, we're still selling host talent reads into large podcasts today. Now, granted, we are and others have built in more and more. We're building in programmatic ad buying platforms. The issue today is they need to work better with the talent reads. The ad formats need to be more friendly to podcast content.
Mm-hmm.
And not be seen as much radio ads, whatever that exact definition is. But I think most people know it when they hear it. So it just needs. That's the other big thing that needs to be worked on by the association is for us to be able to grow the $650 or $1 billion in ad revenue. What does the industry have to look like for us to get there? Around audience, around ad formats, around what type of ads, how what do they sound like? How is the common ways that people do transitions between content and these ads, right?
To go from 300,
everybody's doing it differently right now.
Yeah, to go from 300 to 650, we will all be hiring a lot of people. Because it's going to take an army of teams
just to manage all that,
to execute it. Yeah. And it's a good head hurter, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. There's been lots of wild predictions.
I mean, that's only a couple of years from now.
And what did they say where we're at now? I haven't heard anyone come out with a number this year. Were they saying 300 or something like that?
I was hearing like 340, something like that. 360 is what I've been hearing. which, I don't know what percentage of the podcast content out there is driving that number, but
I think
my guess is that it's pretty small.
I think it's 5%.
Yeah.
Maybe as much as 10, but and I also know that a lot of people are, here's the, I was one of the guys that I respect in the space. He says, we're not talking CPMs no more. We don't talk CPMs. We talk, this is what it costs. So, for me, I'm always, I had a call with my GoDaddy team and earlier in the week, and I didn't get fired, so I was happy there. And but because I talked about on the show how July 1st I took a traffic hit, and I'm climbing myself out of that Google penalty box. Google giveth and Google taketh away, and they took it away because of page speed loads on my website. And so we were, and what that is, I have my formula is I got to have new butts in the seats that's listened to the show every month to keep GoDaddy. My sponsorship deal requires new acquisitions. I don't get any money for folks that are renewing or anything like that. My performance is purely based on brand new customers, and the numbers were down because I wasn't getting as many butts in the door on the front end. And let's be frank, since been doing GoDaddy since 2005, and how do you some of the listeners have heard that ad 500 times. So they've bought all the domains and the hosting services that they've needed. So not having those new butts in the seats was causing my numbers to drop. Not real bad, but enough for a call.
Right.
And, and explain what was going on, and, talk about where we're at and where I expect it to be. And, in any advertiser podcaster relationship, even though that I've had GoDaddy as a sponsor since June of 2005, they have to make money.
Right.
And if they're not making money, Todd's going to be out of a sponsorship deal, or my deal is going to be renegotiated, and it's not going to go up. It's going to go down, which,
right.
But that's on me, right? So I'm just like any other podcaster. So when I hear podcasters say, we're doing deals where we set the price, it's not based around a CPM, the hair stands up on the back of my neck, because I want advertisers for years, not for months.
Right. Well, in the last paragraph of this article that I was referring to from the Digiday folks, it does say in here that brands pay for podcast ads on a CPM basis typically, but some would rather exclusively sponsor podcasts and pay by time. I'm not exactly sure specifically what that means, but they say that it may be more expensive, but a better deal over the long term.
Pay by time. Of course. That's what I do with GoDaddy. Right now it's month to month extended, but I have a contract that ran so much period of time, and then after, just like like renting a house, you get through your 1 year of guaranteed rental, then you're on a month to month, and the landlord can come in and say, I'm raising the rent. If you don't like it, get out or sign a new lease for another year. And that's what these advertisers are doing. They say, and the reason they're buying over time, the content's being bought up. They can't buy it. So
it's a competitive game too, right? If there's competitive brands in a market, which is oftentimes the case with these podcast advertisers, that there's multiple brands in the market that are competing in the same genre, right, of products.
Yeah,
they want to buy up the podcasts that are best for their target audience, and what better way to do that is to buy over time. I also wonder if there's going to be a metric that we need to think about for duration as well. I mean, host talent reads that are a minute and a half should be priced differently than ones that are 30 seconds.
Minute and a half, Rob. What do you mean 3 minutes?
Well, 3 minutes, whatever that metric happens to be. But you're right. I mean, if you think about what Leo Laporte did for many years on his platform, he would do like 2 or 3 4-minute ads.
I don't sell to 60-second lengths. I sell to what it takes to get the ad done.
Right. And that can be done with dynamic ad insertion too.
Right.
So there's no technological limitation to this, and that can be done across all your archives too. That's a way to unlock inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Is to do it using dynamic ad insertion.
But if you forgot about the 90% rule.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to get it in there. Do you need to take it out? Yeah. Most of the time you don't, but
that's true. I guess it depends on the advertiser and what they want.
That's true. And if they're coming up if Macy's wants
targeted they are. Right?
Yeah, if Macy's wants to advertise Black Friday sale, then they don't want that in there at Christmas. So, that is where there's a need to get it in and get it out. But
let's call it what it is. Advertisers have been getting a lot for free in this medium.
A lot
for a long time.
A lot for free.
Because you start thinking about baked in ads, right?
A lot for free.
They don't go away. So those advertisers, maybe the advertiser buys a 2-month campaign. Guess what? Those ads don't stop being delivered after 2 months.
In most of the advertising deals I do, there's a lot of added value that they don't pay for. Banners, they don't pay for them.
Right.
Mentions in the show notes with a no-follow hyperlink, they don't pay for them.
Right.
So at least in the deals I do, not everyone does that. But, yeah. And if in most, okay, let's be frank, most ad copy that comes across our desk at 60 seconds, podcasters spend more than 60 seconds on the ad. Very few people stay to a minute or 30 seconds because we love to talk.
Yes, we're podcasters. Pontification is the key.
Some people are, but I don't think those ads deliver as well. So
the short ones or the longer ones?
I think longer is better if it's executed correctly.
Yeah. No, I mean, especially if it's done from the heart.
Yeah. But
if it's sincere, authentic, if it's done in a production that's compatible with the content, I think that's the key.
And another thing too is that, those that are creating long tail, you got some super value there, but it's hard to do long tail. I mean, we've talked about this many, 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 many times on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true.
The first thing I do is I go look at a show's trending and see if they have the hockey stick that's laid down. I always go look at that.
See, Todd, there is a lot to talk about when it comes to monetization in the podcasting space.
Of course there is. Now, Rick came up with a good idea. Rick said, debunking the revisionist podcast history myths. Todd is a logical choice to do that at PodFest. Said if Todd and Rob did that presentation together, representing the new media show, I think that would be a hot one. But, my history of podcasting might be different than your, I think we could do a pretty good job representing what has happened in the space.
Right.
And I don't know if I see, it's not as prevalent anymore I think we don't see too many instances of revisionist history, but it still crops up once in a while.
I mean, it popped up a couple times this past week. There was a couple of articles that came out talking about has podcasting jumped the shark, right? Did podcasting experiment fail? Those were the articles that were starting to pop up again this week, and I just read these things and I read who the authors are, and it's just like, how long have you been involved in this medium? Just maybe a couple of years or maybe 2 or 3 years, and you're jumping to these conclusions without any context of how we got here, what's happened before and why what we see today exists today, because there are reasons for that.
We have to be careful, because we start hounding on this, we'll be called OG again.
Right. That's right. That's true. I mean, I think what is easy to lose track of is our interest, right, in wanting to progress forward and move the industry forward, and not just be looking back all the time and say, well, it didn't work in the past, so it's not going to work in the future, right? I'm not that black and white about how I look at things, but I do look at things from a very pragmatic perspective and say, okay, this has been tried so many times in the past. Well, why is it different now? I mean, is the market somehow different? Are people looking for something different? And is that the reason why maybe this is the time? Maybe it didn't work in the past. I'm open to that. But it's tough, when people are saying that this medium hasn't fulfilled its destiny, and it's failing. They don't really understand what the pattern has been,
right?
That's driven the success over the last 15 years. It's been steady, constant growth. It's not been a hockey stick. A lot of these people are basing these judgments on this assumption that success is only a hockey stick.
Yeah.
But I don't agree.
And I did want to go back to one point you made about advertisers buying podcasts over time.
Right.
My biggest, I got to use the right word here, because I want to be a sailor. A
rebel with a cause.
Yeah, my biggest complaint with advertisers is when they come in and say, we only want to do 30 day. We don't want to do a 30-day trial buy. And you try to explain that to them, that 90 days is better because it takes 30 days to start building a relationship. First of all, it takes 30 days to kind of get in a groove and start explaining and building upon the story, and advertisers bringing to you. If it's a product you truly believe in, 30 days is not enough in this space.
It's all about frequency in this space.
And at the same, and not only frequency, but the audience is not. The audience is going to say, "Who's this?"
Right.
What's Todd promoting? Does Todd really believe in this product? Is Todd using the product?
Right.
And they're judging internally. And if you're at 60, 90 days and you've gotten into what you're using, whatever it may be, if they sent you a Slinky and you said, man, I'm in love with my Slinky, it goes everywhere I go. I'm just using that as a stupid metaphor. But it's longer. The ramp up period on ad deals perform better in the long haul. And not only that, there's some other stuff that's going on here. Google works to your advantage as well when it comes to having an advertiser for a long time. Right. So buying over a longer period of time is the advertiser. I think those that made that comment in that Digiday article, they figured it out. I try to tell them, you have a meeting every week, and I don't want to do 90 days. I said, I insist. I say the minimum I will do with you is 60. If you've got this much money to spend, we'll split it over 2 months. Right. And then I make them, make sure they have a minimum spend. But there's more value over time.
Right.
How am I still delivering new customers to GoDaddy at 14 years? Think about that, folks.
Yeah.
There's value over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It builds. That's why podcasting is such a strong, and I learned this very early back in my early podcasting days, and fought with advertisers a lot about this, is the power of podcasting around building brand. It's much stronger than I think a lot of people give it credit for. And it's been 15 years, and it's still, I don't believe it's still as appreciated as it needs to be. This direct response stuff is really not the optimal use of this medium. If you really think about it.
That's true. And I look at, I get weekly hosting company du jour that wants to advertise on the show, and I'm like, no. And I tell them how much it is, and they fall out of their chair. And I am like, that's the price it would be if I didn't have the current sponsor.
Right.
And they're like, well, how could you demand that? Well, it's because I'm going to be building your brand, and
Yep.
And it there is true, and I tell my audience, this is, and I don't think a lot of podcasters do this in their advertising. What is that advertising your show? How is it benefiting you? I tell them it keeps my damn lights on. It keeps my insurance paid. It keeps food on my table. Right. Literally. So, if you're getting some benefit from this, is it making your car payment? Is it paying your whatever? You better tell your audience the benefit of that, how supporting that sponsor. And if you love this show, how it supports you. Not only what it supports, not only does it, you want them to try the sponsor's product if you truly believe in it, but they need to know how it's affecting the show. So at least that's my philosophy, and I might be, I don't think very many people follow that, but not very many people have an advertiser spend with them for 14 years.
No, that's true. You are a little unusual on that, Todd. I have to give you credit for that. I think the longest I ever had an advertiser on my show was maybe 4 or 5 months. Yeah.
So and it could have came to an end last week. It sure could have.
Right.
And as I told the team on the phone, I said, it's on me. I have to deliver. If I don't deliver and you're not happy, thank you very much for the 14 years worth of relationship. But if I don't deliver, what can I do? Right.
Right. Hey, Todd, I'm currently on a website here. It's one of those elusive podcast awards that didn't exist until just this last couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
It's called the Australian Podcast Awards.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I guess they're gathering entries.
Good. And someone's done something there already, right? Isn't there?
Yeah. I think there's another podcast awards.
Well,
too.
There's the AustralianPodcastAwards.com. Is that where it's at?
Yeah, correct.
They've done. This is not their first year.
No, I know it's not. Yeah.
Oh. So you mean? I know where you're going. You're so bad.
Well, I'm not saying anything against anybody specifically.
What's going on?
Just making an observation.
Oh,
Todd.
Just making an observation.
They got $10,000 worth of prizes and trophies to give out.
Well,
Did you know that?
Well, they're better funded than I am.
It says that the entries are open until February 14th of this coming year. And I guess they're encouraging people to take advantage of the early bird deal, Todd.
Yeah. Who's a sponsor?
Not sure what that.
Oh, they got good ones. See, why can't I? Zoom, Headliner, Yamaha, Pod News, Audiocraft. Of course, Pod News did sponsor on podcastawards.com. Possible, Pipe Wolf Media. So, yeah. Of course, I have not been super aggressive in going after sponsors, so that's my fault.
But you're right. Pod News is sponsoring it.
Yeah, and they did on podcastawards.com too.
Yeah, that's great. So, yeah, I know. And it's a live stage presentation, too.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So anyway,
that costs money. To do something like that costs cash.
It does.
Lots of cash.
So is there? Yeah,
I mean, rent a venue and put a stage up and have lights and cameras, and $100,000 later. Maybe it's not. Maybe it doesn't cost that much in Australia, but
well, there's been a lot of activity around podcasting down in Australia lately.
Yeah.
I know Dave Jackson was down there complaining that every time he turned around that there was something that was trying to kill him.
Funny.
Did you see his blog post or his Facebook post on that?
I didn't.
He said there's alligators in all of the waterways around there. You can't go in the water, and there's bugs that will kill you. But anyway, I guess he had a great time down there. It was warm and well,
anytime you can leave from somewhere where it's cold and go where it's warm, of course.
Right. So I think Australia is going to become an important market for podcasting. I know I want to make it down there at some point. I've
never been
trying to come up with a reason to head down there.
Some excuse. Yeah.
Right.
Hey, James, get Rob and I a speaking engagement. We'll come.
That's right. Yeah, because we need to start a chapter of the new podcast association stuff, right?
Yeah,
down there. So,
Rob, you're already assuming you're going to be on it. We might be regulated to the side because we're OG.
That's true. That's a good point. Our job is always to start the trouble, not create the trouble. Right?
Yeah.
Is that Okay.
Well, we definitely have a lot of secret listeners that listen to this show.
Right. We do.
We have a lot of secret listeners. Now, here's the thing. You guys haven't been feeding us too much lately. So you need to step it up and start feeding us the juicy tidbits that are out there.
That's right.
But I did see that you sent an email to the Spotify team and asked them to come on.
Yes, I did.
So you got a response. I don't know. That was probably step one. So we'll see where it goes. But let's talk about schedule a little bit. What next week is a little crazy for me. How about for you? How's next week?
Yeah, I'm actually up at the Vancouver Podcast Festival next weekend. So I'll be up there on the 8th through the 10th. So the 10th is on Saturday. So we're going to miss the show next Saturday. All
right. Unless you want to do one on the 11th, let me know. But
which we could. But,
yeah.
If we just want to take that weekend off and then just do it the following week, that'd be fine.
But don't also remember that we'll be coming off Thanksgiving at 7. So 17th will be for sure good to go. But we're going to be looking at we're right into Thanksgiving. My God. So you let me know if you want to do a show on the 24th. I should be available. I do fly out the evening of the 24th, so I should have no problem. Going to the East Coast for a quick 1 week. At least I think I am going to the East Coast for a quick 1 week in and out. Going to the Eastern Seaboard. I have been summoned.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it could very well be that we're off next week, the 10th.
Okay.
But we're on for the 17th and the 24th and the 1st.
Yeah, I think we'll be good.
Okay.
So at least until I look at my wife sent me literally a schedule this long, and thank God we do this show in the morning because it's
to-dos.
Oh, not to-dos. It's my son's in orchestra and he's in marching band and they're having competitions, and it's just I mean I looked at this and I'm like, my actual reaction was, you've got to be beep 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 because I'm looking at this schedule and I'm like, how is this even possible? and I'm looking at dates. I'm like, I do a podcast that night and that's going on. I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna, yeah, it's nuts. Okay. Anyway, that brings us here to the end of the show, everyone.
Yes.
Rob, how can they reach you?
robgreenlee.com. You can send me an email, rob@voxnest.com. Those are two terrific ways to get a hold of me. And I'm on Twitter @robgreenlee as well.
Yep, and I'm on Twitter as well @Geek News. You can reach me, Todd, at blueberry.com. If you have something to share with us, we'd love to see it. But we want to thank you for your time. And we'll look forward to your feed. If you do have inputs on a trade association, if you email it to us, we'll collect that data. Then whoever decides they're brave enough to form this up will pass that data on, or maybe we'll have to be part of it. I'm already tired.
I know. I'm like, oh no, what did I do?
Self-inflicted, 20 more lashes, please, Jeez. So anyway, feed us your feedback and your input, and if you want to participate, my God, if you want to do some heavy lifting and flex some muscles across the entire space, whether you be from corporate podcasting or an independent, we're going to need all hands on deck if this is actually going to work. But I think there's the wheels are starting to turn a little bit, so we'll see where it goes.
Well, Todd, this could be a really important kind of issue to be addressed at some of the upcoming podcasting conferences too. So,
Okay.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Everyone, thank you for being here, and we will see you probably back on the 17th. So everyone take care. Happy podcasting, everyone. Be good. See ya.
Take care. Bye.
Click the wrong button. All right, here we go.